Okay, so I'm basically just going to kind of ask you some questions to get a sense of what you're interested in and who you are as a person and what your values are. And so we're going to try to, we're going to try to brainstorm, and by the end of, the 30 minutes that we have today, that's actually, half the time that I usually use to brainstorm with people. So we won't definitely have a topic for you or an outline, but hopefully we'll have gotten started thinking about how you might want to present yourself to colleges. To start out with, tell me just about, what are your favorite subjects in school, or, within those subjects, what are things you've studied that have gotten you excited?
I'd say like my favorite are like more like sciencey classes or like STEM. So probably like math, um, chemistry, and then biology. I also like Spanish, but I'm not too good at it. And then
Okay, that's fine.
yeah, I think that's it. Or let me see. Um, I mean, I have things like I don't like about each of them, like chemistry. I like most things, like learning about like atoms and stuff, but I don't really like learning about like solutions.
Mm.
And then for biology, I don't really like learning about like photosynthesis and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
then math, I just like most things besides like probability.
Okay. It's good that you know what you what you don't like. I
Oh
think
yeah.
even more important for the personal statement is to know what you really do like. So, when you're pitching yourself to colleges, you're not going to pitch yourself as someone who just likes math broadly or chemistry broadly. Like, the more specific you can be, the more effective your statement will be. So, you don't even need to touch on those things that you don't like, or you could touch on it in a humorous way, like, while I don't love like learning about the intricacies of photosynthesis, chemistry, this other aspect of chemistry really appeals to me. So, what can you remember, like, the most meaningful or fun lesson or like chapter that you did from any of your classes?
Let me see. I don't know, like definitely not. I like chemistry more than biology, but I don't think I can like say anything from there because like I did like AP chemistry online this year.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't really exciting. And then but
Right.
I did honors chem and let me see.
Yeah, I can imagine that experience of kind of doing these online courses would not be the most exciting way to take classes. And I think that's kind of a universal experience. Like, no student loves online learning. But
Yeah.
I guess I'm curious about, like, then have you encountered any ideas or subject matter in your coursework that you were then curious about, and maybe you like looked stuff up outside of class, or things that are still kind of like on your mind, like either things that you don't fully understand and you still think about, or just things you're extra curious to know more about?
Um I guess like one unit that like stands out to me is like when we do like electron configuration stuff.
Okay.
Like that stuff's like interesting, but like sometimes it's like really trivial, but I don't know, I just like really like working with like the periodic table of elements.
Okay, cool. That's a great place to start. So you like working with the periodic table of elements, and you like learning about electron configurations. Um, okay, so that's, I guess, a good place to start. And then let me ask you about, you said sometimes you shadow your dad.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I like
so
this summer I've like started doing like more of that. Like before I'd only go to like my dad's office, but now I like shadow like besides my dad like four other doctors.
okay, yeah, and that's what I was going to ask. What does he do, and where are you? Like, you're at a doctor's office?
Oh yeah, he's like a primary care physician
Yeah.
and I think he like did like internal medicine for like residency. But yeah, and then my like other doctors that I shadow are like ophthalmologists, oncologists, cardiologist, and neurologist.
Oh, wow. So you've just got like the whole gamut there.
Yeah.
You got what, eyes, brains, hearts, and everywhere for cancer, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, what were we gonna say? So do you see any connections between what you do or experience at your dad's doctor's office and what you studied in school? Or do those seem like completely distinct experiences to you?
I guess like the one thing that connects a lot, or oh yeah, like the one thing that connects a lot for me is like neurology and like psychology, because I took AP psychology at school.
Hmm.
And like when he was like diagnosing a patient one time, like I could like see like he was asking about like psychological like disorders. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that was like a pretty big connection, and like yeah, because I learned AP psychology, so it's like pretty fresh in my mind. And yeah, I see a lot of connections from there, just like in like everyday life.
Really? Well, that's kind of fascinating to me.
Oh
So
yeah,
are
I
you
forgot.
interested in psychology too? I mean, it sounds to me like you're interested in psychology, like you're seeing stuff that you learned in everyday life, and that's usually what happens when a student's like interested in something.
Oh yeah, I forgot about psychology. Yeah, that I do like psychology too.
Okay, great. So that's like another possibility. Like, I guess the way that I usually explain it to students or like talk about it is that you want to pitch yourself as like being interested in sort of one main subject for the sake of the personal statement. It's not a binding contractual agreement to the college that you're going to study that. And it also doesn't mean that you're not interested in anything else. Like you might talk about other interests in your supplemental essays. But for the sake of the personal statement, it's usually the best idea to like focus on one of the things you're interested in and explain like how you became interested in it and what your interest looks like now. So to me, it sounds like, you know, the thing that connects your experience at your job to your experience at school is like psychology and a fascination with like how does the brain work. And I mean, the brain is all about like synapses firing and electrons like moving around, right? So you might even connect that to your interest in like electrons and electrical activity. You might just talk about it in relation to the brain. Like you might be interested in investigating electrical activity in the brain and how that works, you know? And so I don't know, have you, what are your thoughts on the brain? Let me just keep picking your brain on the brain. Yeah, like what have your experiences been, particularly with the neurologist that you've like shadowed?
I thought it was like it's like definitely really interesting. Um, I don't know. I definitely just see a lot of connections, like not, but I don't know. Like psychology is like really broad, so like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like all about like there's like people interactions and all these like different intelligences. So like even like when I'm like reading like or like when I used to do like SAT practice and stuff, like I'd see psychology related passages and I'd be like, whoa, because like before I took AP psychology, like I wouldn't like really like understand or care for that stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, so yeah, I'm just jotting down some notes and thinking about you know, your answers so far. Um, Tell me about the actual like tell me about the is it a man or a woman, the neurologist that you've
Oh
shadowed?
yeah. Man, yeah.
And so you don't have to say his name, I guess, because we're recording the call. Otherwise, I would normally ask you that. But um, like, what have been your experiences shadowing with him? Like, what is he like? Do you feel you've learned things from him? You know, what have you observed about the way he works?
Yeah. I've definitely learned a lot, like, cause I've like never like know much about neurology. Like I probably knew more about like ophthalmology maybe, but not really, cause like, but I have glasses, so I know like some of the basics,
Right.
and but not neurology for sure. But like I definitely learned how like he like interacts with them and like asks questions that like I don't know, like the patients are also like really open, which like I feel like I'm not that open like with my doctors even. So it's like
Yeah.
interesting, I guess. But like you kind of have to be open if you want to get like the problem solved. And like
Oh,
so I guess how to like form trust and stuff.
Nice. Though I think those are really profound insights. If you can discuss, what you've actually observed about the way he talks or behaves that does form trust with patients and set them at ease and help them to be open, I think that would be a really valuable thing to discuss in a personal essay. Because surely that's been influential on how you also act, right? Maybe, maybe like it would be influential on how you would aspire to behave as a professional, but it must also to some extent be influential just on how you go about your daily life and interact with people. I mean, if you're seeing this person who sets this example of how to set people at ease and build trust, that's something that you could talk about, like what you've learned from him.
Yeah.
So then it would be a matter of like in actually executing an essay. Let's say you were going to write something about how, working with him helped you to realize how important it is, like the sort of human side of medical care, and how important it is for patients to trust you, to buy into their healing process and stuff like that. It would be important that you would then like brainstorm like close observations that you've made while working with this guy, this doctor, and then you kind of like think about the way that he acts and try to explain what you've learned from it. So that might be one thing you could incorporate into a personal statement. Maybe, there's some idea here that we could work with, like about your interest in psychology and neurology, your experiences with this neurologist. And I like how you said, like, going in, you thought you knew the most about like ophthalmology because, you had glasses and you were interested in that. But then that's how our interests usually work. Like we think we might be interested in one thing, but then once you actually experience it, or you actually experience stuff, you find maybe you're actually interested in another thing. That's why I think your experiences at the doctor's office are maybe valuable ones to talk about, because it shows that you have real experience with these things that you thought you might be interested in. And, those are then interests that you might want to build on in college. Like one thing I always tell students too is like, you don't want to portray yourself as like an expert in neurology or something, right? Or like, everything about the brain. What's even more valuable is something like your situation where like you have experience in this and now you're just more curious about it. And it might be something that you want to study going forward. So yeah, that would be cool to talk about. So we've got kind of, I think maybe like some ideas about academically what you're interested in. And then I also just want to get to know you better, I think, as like, as a person, like what are your values and what have been some aspects of just you that you've been working on over the course of high school in particular, ways you feel you've changed, meaningful experiences, things like that. So let me ask you first just about like, about your like, your personality and your values, like in relation to your family. Like, do you feel like you have like, can you see elements of, your parents, or if you have any siblings, can you see elements of them like in yourself or ways they've like rubbed off on you?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of things, but I guess like I like always say like, oh, it's genetics. And then I guess it's just like the little things. I see like more probably from like my dad, but like I always see like the bad things, like my pollen allergies or like my blood type, which like attracts like mosquitoes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I like that like you see these annoying things, like your pollen allergy, your blood type, and that could be fun to talk about in an essay where then you switch to the good things. Like, what are maybe some things you value about yourself that you feel you've gotten from your parents?
I have not thought about this.
Yeah, no, it's a hard question to think. Well, let's start just with, what do you value about yourself? What do you think you're good at? Not in like an arrogant way, but just like a thing that you are glad that like you, maybe even something you've like worked on personally, be good at. Like just an interpersonal skill or just, something like that.
Just like being like hardworking and like what's it called? Like it's like integrity, having integrity, I guess.
Okay,
Like
great.
yeah, like I always like try to do things, or like also like partly like independence.
Okay.
Like I try to do things myself, figure things out myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, because like I feel like if I do it myself, then I like learn it better. and
Okay,
like
awesome.
more.
Yeah, and do you feel your parents like promoted that type of independence? Like, did they encourage you to try to learn things on your own instead of like always like, like trying to, I don't even know, like go to them for answers or something?
Yeah, definitely.
How did they do that, do you think? Like, do you have specific examples you can think of times when they really, emphasize that you should be independent and hardworking or something like that?
Probably just like having like responsibilities, like or like letting me like help out like in the kitchen or something, like by myself, or
Yeah.
like or just like because like I'm like the oldest sibling, so I have to like take care of my siblings.
Okay.
So having like responsibilities, I guess, like makes me like more independent, I think.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's all great. Great to know. So you feel like you were given responsibilities. You were in charge of caring for people as well. That's something you could talk about, especially if you are now at a doctor's office where the main thing that they do is care for people, right? And so that seems like maybe one of the themes of your life is like responsibility and care. I don't know if those things resonate with you. Do you feel like those are values of yours?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Do you think of yourself as like a person who cares for others, or that's like your role?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you could think about talking about that as one of your values, like a value of like, or like a role would be like a sort of caretaker. Like you might see yourself as a kind of caretaker, and it's possible that you might envision your future like work as involving caretaking. And that would obviously be pretty natural for someone who's interested in, neurology in the brain and even psychology. I mean, that's all about like mental health, right? Or there's at least a branch of it that's all about mental health and taking care of yourself and others. So that's something else that you could think about as you plan like what you might want to write about and how you want to represent yourself. So I kind of asked like what you value about yourself, or in general what you maybe think you're good at. What are some of your accomplishments that you're most proud of? And these don't need to be like you won the gold medal at the Olympics. Like it can be like you were working on a difficult project and you figured out a way to get it done. Like just what are some times especially in the past few years, that you've been proud of some accomplishment?
I'd probably say one of them would be like getting to like FBLA like nationals, like it's like a business kind of club,
Okay.
and like it was like a really like fun experience too, like going to like Texas to compete, and then
So tell me more about that. It was a business club you were part of and you went to through your high school?
yeah, through my high school.
Okay. And did you have to like qualify for nationals, or how did you end up going there?
Oh yeah, I had to qualify through state, so I like placed second in state, and
Okay. And so what did you actually like do? What do you do for this in order to qualify?
you just take like a test, and I had like a business procedures test to take,
Yep.
and then I don't know, I think I kind of got lucky, but it was it was good.
You can't get lucky all the way into second place. So even if you got a little bit lucky, you must be good at it. So what do you think makes you good at? Let's just say you're good at this, because somebody gave you a silver medal at least and said that you were. So what do you think makes you good at this particular activity or test?
I don't know. I guess I'm just better at taking tests in general, like
Mm.
because I know some people who have like test taking anxiety, but I don't know if I have that. Like,
Okay,
I,
cool. Yeah, so you don't have you feel calm in like high pressure scenarios, test taking scenarios.
yeah. Well, I'm also a little slow sometimes, but besides that, it's like good, I
Yeah, well, we're all a little slow sometimes, and people have like their forums where they're faster and they're slower. There's no uniform speed. We all go at different speeds in different arenas. Um,
guess.
okay, so you so I'm still like a little unclear on what you actually do for this business club. Like, what do the questions look like? And yeah, and how did you prepare for this test? You know, like, curious.
Oh, yeah. So I know how to like prepare. Like, there's like resources online, and then like our like school gives us a lot of like resources like past exams, and then there's also like similar questions, and then you just also go on Google and like search things up to clarify if you don't know.
Okay.
And let's see. I mean, I took this. This happened in ninth grade, so that's why like it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to remember, but
Right.
like questions were like. But it was a lot of like business like stuff. Like I remember really clearly because these were really complicated questions for me. But at nationals, the questions were like what color do you wear to show that you're like honest and stuff. And I was like, what the heck?
Wow.
Yeah. So, but because those I did not know at all, so those stuck out to me.
Interesting. That's a strange question for sure.
Mhm.
Okay, interesting. Well, I've taken some notes about that. I think that might be something you can incorporate into supplemental essays. Um, yeah, and especially since it's a few years ago, and
Yeah.
there's no clear through line of your experience with that. I don't think it's probably viable for a personal essay, but
Mm.
but perhaps as something to talk about when you're discussing your other interests. Yeah, you might talk about that. Okay,
Mm.
and then did you have something else you were going to talk about? Accomplishments.
Accomplishments. Maybe during like the pandemic. This isn't like this is just like not that big, but it's just like I've been like continuing like dancing, and like a lot of other people like in my grade and like senior year have like quit. So I guess like that. I don't know. Just like commitments. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Commitment, right? Like you've committed to an activity.
Yeah, I guess.
That makes sense. Um, yeah. Okay. So you dance. That's another thing about you is that you're on a dance team, and um, okay. So let me note that down. Dance and commitment to dance. So I do get a sense. I already get a sense of like who you are a little bit. Like even in the way you've described yourself in this brief time, like you've really focused on like responsibility and integrity and commitment and work ethic. Like you seem like a really earnest, hardworking person. Uh, who doesn't want to let people down. That seems like a big part of who you are. And so I think that's kind of what you would want to get across a little bit in your personal statement. But obviously, you also have like a really good sense of humor. You're pretty quick to laugh, like you're personable. So I think like that would also be, you want to like let that part of your personality shine through as well in a personal statement. Like, you know, don't take yourself too seriously, because obviously you do take yourself seriously. You have you have this great sense of responsibility and work ethic, but also you want to show that side of yourself that has this sense of humor about things. So I think that would be important too in your personal statement, to just make sure that you let that sense of humor shine through. um, yeah. Okay, so we've got just a couple more minutes, right? So let me maybe ask you one question that I like to ask, just because I'm a literary person, is like, what's your favorite book, or what do you like? But also, just what do you like to read? Like, do you have magazines that you read normally, or like newspapers, or anything like that? And then also, like, what's your favorite book?
So mainly I just like read books. I don't really like magazines, newspapers. And then like I like I haven't read for pleasure for like a pretty long time, but I like enjoy reading the books that we read like in language arts classes and stuff. But those are more topic based, like reading about like underprivileged kids in like
Mm,
California, because like we were like learning about education and stuff.
okay.
And then but like if I really want to read a book, I like action books, and like ones that are like filled with like fiction, very fictional. Like I don't know if like Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, Land of Stories.
Yep. Yep. Okay. I
I
know all
don't know if
those.
you the one that I really like these are the series, but I don't know if you know. It's like really childish, but it was amazing. But the Unwanteds, I don't know.
Sorry, what's it called? You just broke up for a second.
Oh, the Unwanteds.
The Unwanteds. Okay.
Yeah, but that was probably my favorite, even though like it was a really easy read, but it was like filled with like action and yeah, those are probably my favorite.
Okay, cool. Good to know. All right, so that's about the time that we have, and I'm sure that you need to go and get back to shadowing one of these several doctors. But so I think basically, you know, what emerged from what we talked about today is that it would probably be, you know, most promising for you to think about meaningful experiences in your psych classes and meaningful experiences that you've had shadowing, in particular, the neurologist at your dad's doctor's office, and to tell some kind of story about how your interest in psychology and neurology in the brain has developed over the course of your, the classes that you took at school, and then also this sort of, you know, unofficial internship thing. And then in combination with that story, you could tell a story of personal development about how you've developed your sense of responsibility and integrity and care, and also how you've learned about, you know, the importance of like setting people at ease and establishing like open lines of dialogue, which, you know, you probably have observed through shadowing the neurologist. So like if we had future sessions, which maybe we will, I don't know if you're, you know, interested in having future sessions. If we have future sessions, then we could talk more about, you know, trying to think of like an opening scene that might work, and sketching out an outline, and doing more brainstorming about specific, you know, details or conversations or scenes that stand out to you from your classes and your time at the doctor's office.